Hey everybody, welcome back. Well, I am Mrs. Somick. Again, I'm a fourth grade teacher at Parsley Elementary, and I am really excited to join you today because we are going to go on a field trip. Are your bags packed? Are you ready? All right, so this is going to be kind of like a three-part series that I'm going to be doing with you. And the first place we're going to visit today is going to be the mountains of North Carolina. See, North Carolina has been separated up into three separate regions. Okay, we have our mountain region, which is on our west side of our state. We have our Piedmont region, which is right directly in the middle of North Carolina. And then, as we know, on the East Coast, we have the coastal plains, which is where we live. Okay, so we're going to head west. Pack those bags for me. Get ready because we're going to go on a virtual tour of the mountain regions of North Carolina. Hope you're excited. Get ready to join me. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you are just as excited as I am. We're going to make our first stop along our travel across the state of North Carolina at the mountain region. So along this virtual field trip with me, if you are enjoying this and would like to learn a little bit more, most of my information came right here from www.ncmuseumofhistory.org. Now, we are going to finish up today's study of the mountain region with a small craft. And if you'd like to join in with me, all you need is just a small paper cup, scissors, tape, and if you have any kind of different type of color of paper, like construction paper, anything like that you may want to use, you're going to need strips of that paper as well. If you don't have those materials, that's fine. You can watch me try to do this craft at the end and maybe join in with it at a later time. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here with the mountain region of North Carolina. So why is the mountain region so unique? Well, the parts we're going to take a look at today is we're going to look at its location and the land features. We're going to look at the history of the American Indians, along with the settlers to the mountain region, Blue Ridge Parkway, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and we're going to wrap up today's discussion with looking at the music, dance, and mountain crafts of this area. And that's where those craft materials are going to come in handy if you can join me today. All right, so as I said earlier, the state of North Carolina is broken up into three main sections. Here in the western part of our state is our mountain region. Right in the middle, where we will investigate in our next virtual field trip, is going to be the Piedmont before we finish up here along the coastal plains where we live of North Carolina. So as I already said, the mountain region is the western part of North Carolina, and it is part of the Appalachian Mountains chain, which is the oldest mountain range in the United States. Now, I'm from North Carolina, so we pronounce it the Appalachian Mountains. From people from out of state, it may also be referred to as the Appalachian Mountains. So both pronunciations are fine. Now, the age of the rocks in the mountain region range from 400 million to 1 billion years old. Ooh, so that explains why it's definitely the oldest mountain range here. Now, Asheville, maybe you've heard of it, is the largest city in the mountain region, and it has a population of about 80,000 people. Now, we're going to take a look here at Grandfather Mountain together. Now, the reason it's called Grandfather Mountain is it's named for its resemblance of the profile of an elderly man lying on his back facing the sky. Now, this mountain serves as a habitat for black bears, cougars, deer, panthers, otters, bald eagles, and golden eagles. At 5,960 feet, Grandfather Mountain is the highest peak in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So I hope you're excited. Let's go investigate Grandfather Mountain together.
Grandfather Mountain is just an extraordinary place. And North Carolinians for over a century have been coming here, making family memories and experiencing wonders of nature. It's probably best known for the scenic beauty. The views from the top of the mountain are extraordinary. You can see a long way. On a clear day, you can see the skyline of Charlotte from here, which is about 85 miles away.
Part of the reason visitors are sometimes able to see that many miles away is being a mile up when they do it. The peak of Grandfather Mountain features one of its highest rated points of interest.
Mile High Swinging Bridge is probably the top attraction at Grandfather Mountain. It was built in 1952. It's a 228-foot long suspension bridge. It's about 80 feet above the gorge below it. but is exactly 1 mile above sea level, hence the name Mile High Swing Bridge.
I'm a little bit of like an adrenaline junkie, so I was like, yes, I'm so excited for the bridge. Even with that, like my heart started kind of racing a little bit when we were about midway through, and the wind was definitely kind of, you could feel the sway of the bridge.
Crossing from one side of the bridge to the other is accomplishment enough for many visitors, but it's not the only reward they receive.
From the swinging bridge, you can connect to Linville Peak, which affords visitors a 360-degree view.
It's beautiful. It really is. The bridge isn't as scary as what you might think it would be. It's really very sturdy and has lots of cables to hold it in place, but the wind is just unbelievable. This is our first time ever to come to Grandfather Mountain. We've lived in North Carolina for almost 40 years, and it's probably been on our list about that long.
It also wound up on the list of a man from Alabama a few years back, a gentleman who just felt like running.
One of the attractions on Grandfather Mountain is Forrest Gump Curve. The scene in Forrest Gump that was shot here on Grandfather Mountain is one of the first scenes that they showed Forrest running across country with a mob of runners behind him.
The athletic pursuits on Grandfather Mountain aren't just limited to the silver screen. There's a series of them that take place each July, kilts and all.
The Grandfather Mountain Highland Games take place the second full weekend in July. We expect 15,000, maybe 20,000 visitors to come watch grown men toss cabers and collies, herd sheep and ducks, and a lot of other Scottish activities, dances, great music.
The Scottish tradition comes from the family that owned Grandfather Mountain. After Patriarch Hugh McCrae Morton's death in 2006, the land on the mountain was divided. The Grandfather Mountain Stewardship Foundation oversees the swinging bridge and other attractions, but much of the remaining land is now part of Grandfather Mountain State Park. Both sections feature miles of hiking trails.
The hiking is definitely my favorite part of this area. We actually went on the Black Rock Trail. We're talking about coming back soon just to do all the other trails, because I think there's like 12 miles of trails around here, and that was only like a mile and a half in.
As well known as the views from Grandfather Mountain are, it's the view of the mountain that serves as its namesake.
Grandfather Mountain got its name from the appearance. When you're looking at the mountain from the northeast, looking upwards, it looks like an old man's face lying down looking up at the sky.
Back on Grandfather Mountain, there's one thing from top to bottom that ties all the mountain's attractions together: a foundational focus on nature and wildlife.
Black bears are still a very popular animal to see here on Grandfather Mountain. We have 6 bears right now in our animal habitats that people can come and visit and meet. The visitors can walk through and see, like elk and otters and cougars. We also have a nature center, and it has a wonderful collection of exhibits and specimens that really illustrate what's so unique and diverse about Grandfather Mountain. We simply want to inspire folks to conserve our natural world. We want people to explore, understand, and value what's so wonderful about this place and places like it across our region. It's a really unique and beautiful landscape, and we hope that people will continue to come and enjoy this place for generations to come.
All right, so I hope you had a blast looking over Grandfather Mountain. And did you see from the profile of the old man lying on his back how it's shaped like that? I sure saw the resemblance. Hope you did too. All right, so let's take a look at our history of the American Indians of this area. Archaeologists have evidence that an ancient people lived in the mountain region at least 11,000 years ago, and they refer to this early group as the Pisgah culture. And the Cherokee believe these ancient people are their original ancestors. Now, the Cherokee occupied the mountain region when the first European explorers arrived in the 1500s. They call themselves the principal people. Diseases brought by the to America by Europeans, though, it did take a toll on the native people. And in 1738 to 1739, a smallpox epidemic killed about half of the Cherokee population in the mountain region. Between 1780 and 1830, the Cherokees ceded land again and again, hoping to end the advance of settlement and still maintain their way of life. But unfortunately, in 1838, some 17,000 North Carolina Cherokee were forcibly removed from their land in the mountains to the Indian Territory, along what many of you maybe have already heard of, the Trail of Tears. Now, about 4,000 people died during this 1,200-mile trek due to poor conditions, exposure, and a lack of supplies. Now, a reservation was established for the remaining Cherokee in western North Carolina, and these descendants of the Cherokee became the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians here. And you can see how these descendants have tried to continue to show the traditional ways, as you can see here with their wearing, and then also the arts and crafts that you can see our ladies up top that are working on here. Now, the settlers to the mountain region, because of its remoteness, kind of how it's so away from everything else from the coastal plains. Remember, the coastal plains are where the earliest settlements actually began, and the Piedmont. The mountain region was the last of North Carolina to be settled by the Europeans. Now, English, German, Welsh, French, African-American, and Scotch-Irish settlers, as we saw from those Highland games, began moving into the mountains in around the 18th century. Now, in the early 1800s, more settlers arrived in the mountain region. Some came from the Piedmont and the coastal plains of North Carolina. Other settlers came from Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia to the Piedmont along what they call the Great Wagon Road, before then eventually heading west to the mountains. And I've included here some sketches and pictures here for you can kind of see what these log cabins of this area that looked like. Now, our next stop here is we're going to take a look at the Blue Ridge Parkway. Now, this was established here in the 1930s. Government officials in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia realized that a roadway crossing the Appalachian Mountains would benefit the citizens of their state. It would help improve transportation and also increase people coming to the area, increase that tourism. Now, building a highway would also, here's the other benefit to it, offer employment to many people who had just lost their jobs in the Great Depression. Now, in 1935, construction actually began. Now, the parkway was intended to enhance, though, the natural beauty of the region. So we're getting ready to take a look here. 469-mile Blue Ridge Parkway. It was dedicated in September of 1987. So that's 52 years after construction had begun. Over 600 million visitors have used this roadway. And I want you to notice as we start to explore this, it contains 26 tunnels, dozens of bridges, and hundreds of parking areas and overlooks with spectacular views. And you'll see some of these overlooks here in just a moment. Let's take a look.
Ridge Parkway, 469 miles in length, invites travelers to slow down and take a drive of a different kind. Meandering through the rugged mountains of the Appalachian Highlands, this is a recreational motorway and our nation's longest national park area. Begun during the Great Depression, the parkway provided thousands of construction jobs for the unemployed. Conceived with the ambitious goal of linking Shenandoah with the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the road took 52 years to complete. .130 species of trees grow along the parkway, as many as are found in all of Europe. Those who pause along the route will discover the intricate details of nature. Mile after mile, the parkway passes through a cross-section of Appalachian mountain history and culture. 19th century log cabins embraced by the natural world of the Blue Ridge suggest the isolated existence of mountain families. Along the way, there are traces of early industry. Here, along the roadway, music, cooking, and oral traditions preserve the legacy of a proud people.
All right, wasn't that scenic drive absolutely beautiful? I hope you enjoyed that. And I did give you a little bit of a sneak preview into some of the music and the dancing, if you noticed that earlier as well. All right, so let's take another stop here. We're going to look at the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So in the early 1900s, industrial logging, it stripped many of the mountains of their forests. And by the mid-1920s, over 300,000 acres of clear cutting had left a large part of the Smoky Mountains bare. So a group of people, they recognized the beauty of the unspoiled part of the mountains and suggested making Smoky Mountains a national park to preserve or save 100,000 acres of the uncut forests. So today, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is one of the most visited national parks in the United States. Are you ready to go see it? All right, let's go travel.
Great Smoky Mountain is the most visited national park, but in some ways, the least well known. It's most visited because it's in the eastern part of the United States, close to the major population centers, and it's also a place where people drive through it. But it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful park, and it represents the attempt to save the last wildwoods of the Appalachian in the eastern United States. There are two great hikes to little waterfalls, Indian Creek and Tom's Branch, that are really wonderful and worth it. I could read a quote from Horace Kephart about the Smoky Mountains. He devoted his life to saving the mountains and creating the park. He said, "The dreamy blue haze that ever hovers over the mountains softens all outlines, lends a mirage-like effect of great distance to objects that are but a few miles off, while those farther removed grow more and more intangible, until finally the skyline blends with the sky itself." That's vanishing. You can vanish in the Great Smokies, and that's what it is. It's about, I think most of the national parks are about losing yourself, losing the busy life. You know, we call ourselves human beings, but we're really human doings. And the national parks allow us to reconnect to something more essential and elemental. It used to be said that a squirrel could go from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River without much touching ground. There was that much dense cover, forest cover. That's not true anymore. But the Smokies Mountain, the impulse to save it was to save the last of the old growth forests. It's also a place in which the creation of the park forced the removal of existing towns. And so there's a great human story to this, the great human story of the Appalachian people, Cherokee Indians and old Scotch-Irish, and sort of refugees from the old Confederacy who had to be uprooted and transplanted. And you can find the little Greenbrier School that's still standing there. And you can take hikes to Little Falls. They're not spectacular in the sense that Yosemite is spectacular or Yellowstone Falls is spectacular, but they have a kind of intimacy that all you need to do is park and get off the many, many roads in this large park and see that blue mountain haze that is part of this beautiful mythological place. So much of American music, country music, so much of our songs and our stories come from the mythology of Great Smoky, and we wouldn't have them. They would have sort of trickled out and died had not we saved this beautiful place.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed seeing those beautiful video clips of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. As we wrap things up today here, we're going to take a look at the music, dance, and the mountain crafts here before we get started with our own mountain craft together. So old-time music developed in the Appalachian Mountains in the 1700s, and it incorporated the music brought to America by European immigrants and the rhythmic traditions brought by Africans. Now, old-time music is played using various stringed instruments such as the fiddle, guitar, and the banjo, which you can see here a photograph of our banjo. The banjo actually originated in Africa and was introduced to North America by slaves. Now, clogging, you have my ladies up here in the corner. Clogging is a form of dance that began in the Appalachian Mountains, and different dance styles from the various European settlers to the region combined into a foot tapping dance. Usually it's performed to fiddle or string band music. And to wrap things up, the isolation of the mountain region helps create an environment in which family traditions were handed down for many years without significant outside influence. So artistic talent found expression in handcrafts that included basket making, weaving, and woodworking and quilting that you can see here, all these beautiful crafts. So I hope you're excited and ready. We're going to take a try at a craft together here of weaving a paper basket. Like I said earlier, if you have a paper cup, some strips of paper, scissors, and tape, you can do this alongside of me. So get ready, and we're going to get started here. All right, everybody. Well, I've got my materials out in front of me. I didn't have a paper cup, but I did have a plastic cup, which we're just going to use whatever we have. I obviously have my trusty pair of scissors. Be careful with your scissors. Tape. And then I didn't have any construction paper, so I got creative. And all I did was just take regular paper and I colored it in with a crayon. So just to add some color to our paper basket. Now, you may want to have a parent help you out with this, but I went ahead and just cut my cup into, it's about 8 sections, okay? And you're cutting down to the little bottom portion of your cup. Now, to start your weaving, what you're going to do is you're going to take your strip here, and you're going to put some tape right here on the end of it. Now, one of the little strips here, you're going to put your colored strip inside of it and tape it down. It gives you kind of a starting point for your weaving. Now, the actual weaving process, you're simply just going to go either in front of the next flap and then behind it, and then in front and then behind it. And this is what the weaving is, okay? You're just going to keep alternating in front and behind all the way until you've gotten around your cup, and then you'll tape it down. Here's the key point. When you start the next strip, okay, you want to make sure that you alternate what you just did. So this one, I'm going to tape behind, and I'm going to go in front of the next one and behind, and then in front. So you get this kind of every other sort of pattern here on your flaps. Now, fast forward, and I have almost finished the cup I started. Now, you guys may end up doing a much better job than I did, but this is my best shot here. So I'm going to keep going in front and behind as I finish up these final flaps here. And I'm trying to make sure you can see it as well. And you're going to notice I have a little bit of extra. So I'm simply just going to cut that extra off. Now, what am I going to do with my extra little piece? I'm actually going to tape it around the top here so it acts like a handle to our paper basket. So 2 quick little strips of tape here. Tape it down, and I have my final product, okay? It's like a little homemade paper basket. I had to use a little plastic one, but you can fill it up with some goodies for you, okay? I'm sure yours came out just as beautiful, if not better than mine, so I can't wait to see how things go. I hope you guys enjoyed our study of the mountain region. And until next time.